This is the E-commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and I'm joined today by Leon Lewis, who is an e-commerce manager at REBBL, which is a beverage company. And I was just checking out your brand online previous. It seems like a really interesting category that you're in, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But just as a little bit more background on Leon, prior to working at REBBL, you were a senior e-commerce and digital marketing manager at Health Warrior, which is another healthy CPG company. And before that, the brand director for the world's top-selling ukulele brand, Lanakai Ukuleles. Welcome to the E-commerce Braintrust podcast, Leon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kiri. I really appreciate you having me. When it's all spelled out like that, it sounds like kind of a crazy path.
Sounds like you know what you're doing, which is why I wanted to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think I've been into e-commerce since I was a child. I started a little digitally native brand, which was not a term, when I was a kid in 1997, and
direct to consumer wasn't a thing back then.
Right. Yeah. There were just a handful of credit card processors online. There was no PayPal yet, and my mom had to, sign up to get us a merchant account to accept, payments and everything. And, I did that for, a number of years. And as I got older, my interest shifted, and I ran a record label, for, over a decade.
Wow.
Put out some artists that are, very, very famous now, Future Islands, No BS Brass Band. And we had a huge custom built, ground up e-commerce website. We had, I think at the top, over 2,000 items that we sold online. And that was back when e-commerce was, kind of for, it was for subculture and counterculture, and it was for things that you just couldn't find. So it was not like, cool, I can get this within 2 days, right? Or I can get it later today. It was like, oh my gosh, I can actually buy this now. I can actually find this thing,
right.
Online. So
was this around the era of CD Baby?
Yeah, definitely. This was before, we were selling CDs, vinyl was like not even a thing again yet. So yeah, did that, and then kind of went into the musical instruments industry after that. And, Lanakai Ukulele was world famous brand, number one brand in Australia. And, we really focused on e-commerce. In the musical instruments industry, very old school, they're still just catching up. When we went direct with Amazon, we were, one of the first brands in the musical instruments category to go direct with Amazon. We were able, this is back when your vendor managers worked very closely with you. And, and we would be very strategic as to how we could own the category, together. We got into Amazon advertising, when it was in beta, and like we were the only people, buying, ukulele keywords, and the ukulele industry, really, really exploded. It went from, in the US, maybe $4 to $5 million to, close to $100 million just in the US annually. So it blew up.
So you were there 2012 to 2015. So that isn't even that long ago. And what you're describing in terms of having a close relationship with your vendor manager at Amazon sounds like ancient history, but this is only like 5 years ago.
Yeah. And even when after that, I went to Health Warrior, And, I live in Richmond, Virginia. So, which is a, merging town, but not for e-commerce or, startups or anything like that. I was the only person that applied for the job, I believe. So, and, we were getting in there, we were learning so much. And yeah, Amazon transformed in that time. I mean, we were, healthware is a bar brand, right? So healthy snack bars. And, that category obviously has exploded. The pie has been cut up into so many pieces that, everyone kind of stopped paying attention to how big the pie was, so now it's so, divided, and it's really, really hard to, grow a brand in that category, now as well. So yeah. And post, Pepsi acquired, Health Warrior last fall, and, saw that as opportunity to, to kind of move on. And REBBL's a brand that I've admired for a long time, cause it's a cause and mission driven, brand. So for me.
Yeah. Tell us about that company.
Yeah.
It's pretty new to me.
Yeah, REBBL, it's actually an acronym, so roots, extracts, berries, barks, and leaves. And we were actually started by a nonprofit called Not for Sale, which, focuses on education and, providing housing and medical assistance to, those who are exposed to or have been victims of, human trafficking, and modern slavery in the developing world. One interesting thing with the rise in, all of these ingredients, essential oils that take, incredible amounts of, produce to create, in the developing world, there's not always healthy labor practices. So, REBBL has identified that. We work directly with our growers. We've helped over 20,000 of our growers and their families and community members, in various ways. And so we merged that with, delicious, clean and functional products. So like a turmeric golden milk or, ashwagandha products, plant-based protein, milks as well. And yeah, it's very exciting. It's a perishable product, which is a fun challenge for me. Cause, Amazon, as far as Amazon Core, has not figured that out yet. And of course, the fresh platform has been a big challenge for us as well. So,
yes, I bet. Mm-hmm, so are you currently seeing, with regards to the grocery marketplace platforms, who do you think's really getting it right now if it's not Amazon Fresh?
Yeah. I mean, as far as separate platforms from Amazon?
Yeah. And in the whole marketplace landscape, who's sort of cracking the code there? Because it is obviously a really challenging category.
Yeah. I've been very impressed with Fresh Direct. Recently they've had, some fresh investment
in the Northeast,
and in the Northeast, and they're continuing to expand further and further down the 95 corridor. So I think they're in DC now, Baltimore, Philadelphia. Yeah. And, they're getting it right. They're able to, package up, perishable frozen products, and deliver them. And besides that, TBD if, Thrive Market, gets into that business. And, and I continue to be impressed with Instacart. I recently, had my first chance to go and, actually visit their HQ and realize just how sizable that business is. And, I think Amazon, every source I have, points to a lot of weakness in all of these different businesses that Amazon has created. They've created massive challenges for themselves by creating Pantry and Fresh and Prime Now, all these different things that, have blossomed, not as much as anyone hoped they would, especially, I think a lot of brands that have invested, in those platforms specifically. Yeah. And now it's kind of broken, and
right.
So, how right now I'm taking, REBBL has a Amazon Fresh presence. We've had some growth challenges there. So we're trying to manage that, but also bring the brand to, to core grocery through, we're just going to do, Seller Central, handle all the fulfillment ourselves. We found a great, fulfillment partner, and just see how big we can make a business by handling our own perishable shipments, to Amazon customers.
That's really interesting. So you essentially taken matters into your own hands, because Amazon being such an enormous company and moving so quickly on many dimensions, is by virtue of all of that quite siloed. And so the pantry people don't know what's going on with fresh, and the systems don't really talk to each other, and they're like dealing with different businesses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting as I've been able to connect, with different, folks in the Amazon organization, which is not a big focus of mine. I don't feel like you need to have an at Amazon to run a successful business at all. But, it's funny because I will be with someone from, the media group, and they'll go, wait, so what did you hear about fresh? Like, that's interesting. That's news to me, and then it's like, oh, okay. So always interesting how that shakes out.
Yeah, you're able to go really deep in your expertise, whether that's media or consumables, things like that. But to understand everything that's going on across the organization is a real challenge. And even, as I spend my entire day thinking and talking about Amazon, and I'm not across everything either. And I'm someone who's like completely outside of the organization, watching all the news come out. And there's definitely lots that slip by. One of the reasons why we're having this conversation today is that we've been chatting on LinkedIn the last couple of weeks. And I saw a post that you put up after there was the whole vendor POs getting cancelled and then reinstated, and this whole soap opera that happened a few weeks ago that created a lot of emotion and a lot of panic, and it was a crazy, crazy time. And your post on LinkedIn was, I'm hoping this drives brands to think hard about the experience they bring to their customers in the digital economy and focus on building world-class brand e-commerce sites that deliver the same sales as investing in Amazon while building a much deeper connection with their consumer. And I thought that was really interesting. And I definitely do agree with you that there is a trap of looking at Amazon as, hey, this is 50% of e-commerce sales. Let's go hard, lean hard into Amazon, but forgetting about brand and customer experience, which there's some research that we're going to talk about, which has some sort of conflicting findings, I think, because on one side, I think brands are very important, and especially in a very crowded market like we have today, they are a marker of quality, and they are a marker of, how does this fit into my lifestyle? And REBBL is a great example of that because it's very lifestyle driven and trying to attract a very specific type of customer, versus the fact that we know an enormous percentage of sales are conducted on Amazon. People are researching their purchases from beginning to end and ultimately transacting on Amazon too. So holding those two concepts in your brain at the same time of brands are important, but this channel means almost everything. Where are you at right now in thinking about that? Because you obviously have a brand that has a lot of equity and wants to build that direct connection, but Amazon's important too. How do you resolve that conflict?
Yeah, it's a major challenge, and I think we have to do two key things, and it requires, I think, being very honest with yourself, especially when you are, an entrepreneur and you're building, a small brand, and especially in, CPG where there's so many startups. And, the first is, the concept of a platform brand is so popular right now, right? The idea that we are going to create a product and then we're going to create more products around it. And we might make crackers, right? We might be a cracker brand. And it's like, okay, can we create a platform for crackers, or are we just crackers, and like, can we take can we play a large enough role in our consumers' lives that they will come back to our website and, and repurchase from us, and they will listen to the content that we put out or read it and actually sign up for a subscription or try our new products. And that's not for everyone. There's very few brands that can really execute on that. And those brands can use Amazon as an awareness driver, but ultimately, they can cultivate a very strong direct to consumer presence and drive, very high lifetime value, for their shoppers. And so it's okay, well, do we have that value Is it, will customers actually continue to come back and repurchase from us? Or did we just kind of, pull a bunch of marketing levers to get you to buy one time? And if we put it on sale, you might buy it a second time. I'm not as impressed with the first purchase anymore, right? It used to be like, okay, let's figure out how to get consumers to buy something online. And now whether it's D2C or Amazon, that's pretty doable, but it's in the longer term, I'm impressed when you can get the third buy or the fourth buy. And that shows that a brand has some depth and that it plays a role. Because otherwise, if let's say I have a cracker brand and I want to have, a large D2C business, really what I'm asking consumers to do is, or expecting, is that they're going to, be purchasing their crackers and then their rice and, from the great rice brand and their website, and so rather than, oh, now I buy my groceries online. No, I buy my groceries online from 50 different websites. It just doesn't make sense. It's not consumer behavior that is logical, right? So like you can kind of, as a brand owner, stand back and say, okay, is it reasonable to expect customers to come and purchase this product from us regularly from our own website, possibly pay more, higher shipping, have to buy a larger pack, and then you have to invest in all of the things having to do with, D2C? Or, can we actually exist within this Amazon ecosystem? Let's say I'm a cracker brand and, and get on, the first page or the second page of search results, and hope that customers come back, because the challenge there is, Amazon is just beginning to show us, how many customers come back. Here's how you can, show them some more ads more directly. But, we're unable to actually build that rapport with our consumers and actually build more value. And yeah, when we get to the Feedvisor piece, we'll see that what we're really doing is we're building value for Amazon. And, and we're putting Amazon in a position where they're like, customers really love gluten-free crackers. And so, so let's create a gluten-free cracker brand. And now let's make sure that's at the top of these searches, so there's a lot of risk. So yeah, it's a lot to talk about. There's a ton of different angles. And, of course, on Amazon, there's massive costs just to get your foot in the door with search now. And ultimately, if you're starting from scratch today, you're going to end up, your best case scenario is you're going to end up somewhere between where you were, where all of the very small brands are, and where big CPG is, and, who will invest, their pockets are pretty deep, to continue to own a lot of those searches and terms. So you end up in sort of the worst possible place, which is right in the middle. So. Yeah.
The research that we're referring to is a survey of 2,000 US consumers from the software company Feedvisor, and they create marketplace management software for Amazon sellers. And so they did this survey, and this is self-reported behavior, which as a research methodology has lots of flaws because people aren't that great at reporting what they actually have done. So it's better to study actual behavior than self-reported behavior. But that aside, and maybe this will color our interpretation of this report a little bit, but some of the headlines from this report is 89% of consumers say they're more likely to buy products from Amazon than other e-commerce sites, and that includes Walmart, Best Buy, and 96% of Prime members agree that they're going to buy from Amazon above other e-com sites. So the other piece of interesting research from here is when customers are ready to buy a specific product, almost 3/4 of them go to Amazon to buy it. And that extends not just to the transactional end of the shopper journey, but also in the research phase as well. People are researching products before they buy. They're checking reviews, they're checking prices, and then they're checking out on Amazon. So this is, first of all, Leon, any comments on the methodology of this survey? Because like I said, being self-reported behavior,
Right. Yeah. And you can even see, a lot of it. There's one I'm looking at, a slide that's, consumer satisfaction, highly satisfied. It's like, these are, when I take surveys like this, it's, I mean, it's always hard to answer, and you always want, I want something in between those two. But no, I mean, to me, this reflects things that we already know. I mean, which is, Amazon is huge, and you want top billing on Amazon, and also, consumers are learning to look to Amazon to create products for them, and really to curate what are category leaders, for every search. And that presents a lot of challenges for smaller brands, and it makes sense why, it's when Amazon stops issuing POs, for a week, which has happened before, but, everyone kind of panics, because it makes sense, for Amazon to go back to, where it was, years ago when we were talking about, ukuleles, where it was like, yeah, we want to work with a handful of very important, like, key brands for this category, and we want to help them succeed, and we want to succeed together. And Amazon is a marketplace. Everyone is always welcome, but we want to give our consumers, the best product. And, they're very good at creating a circular, self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
So it's most popular because it's at the top of the, the SERPs, and it's at the top of the SERPs because it's most popular. And, so yeah, it puts everyone in a very challenging position, I think. Yeah.
So we've sort of laid out the problem. This is the problem. Obviously, based on in your past roles, especially, you found a way to bridge that gap, and maybe it wasn't perfect, and maybe you would have preferred to have a bit more, higher percentage of your e-com sales be on your website directly if you had your druthers. But how are you thinking about that now in your current role? Are you thinking about channels, or are you thinking more like, we want to get our product and get our brand in front of customers that our brand is going to be important to, and so we're a little bit more agnostic about the actual channel?
Yeah, we are a little bit more agnostic about the channel. I mean, my approach, and I feel like this is often lost, is, my approach is to, maintain the consumer perspective on this entire experience. And I really feel like that's lost because I see, $1 million Amazon listings that have, really bad photos, and, and descriptions that don't really tell you a story or walk you through it. Now, I'm sure that, someone was paid good money to, put their best practices to work and do that. But, one interesting, part of this journey for me is I'm 34, and I started this when I was 12, is that, we've gone from, approaching these things very intuitively to really, really relying on data and, our own thoughts and intuitions and our own, perspectives as consumers in these categories is very secondary. So, for REBBL and for Health Warrior and any brand that I come into contact with is, who is your consumer? What do they want to know? How do you qualify them? And then what is the story that you're going to tell them that, is going to be exciting and visually stimulating and, and make them feel like this is something that is meaningful to me. And that's not every brand. I realize that, I do alienate, many, many widget brands that have their own reason to exist. But when you're trying to build value for a brand, and in this world of venture-backed CPG that I've found myself in, that's what we're trying to do, is build, real value to consumers. And I think that a transition in that world is happening where it's going to be about that value and, and understanding how to build real depth with your consumer versus, oh, Whole30 is really popular. We're a Whole30 approved snack. Okay, fast forward 4 years later, Whole30 has gone away and now everyone is into keto.
Right.
So what happens if, I don't know, you paid a lot of money for a Whole30 brand?
Right.
You know, so now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, let's just restructure the entire brand to be about the next fad. It's like, well, you didn't really build yourself on that. You built yourself on this one solution. Whereas if you built yourself on, okay, we're a trustworthy platform that we understand your interest and your needs in nutrition and we're going to address it, that's a lot different than hitting the nutritional macros, right, on a snack product. So yeah, I think when you look at that shift versus the huge surges in advertising cost, I've seen brand terms go from, cents to $5, just for brand terms, because, when you start to get hot on the platform, everyone sees it and they go for it. It's simply not, sustainable. So that's, always the art of, running a business versus the science of it. But, I try to look at both as much as I can.
That's a great point, and it's a really interesting way to look at. Hey, we want to build a brand with longevity that's not like you made the example of Whole30 versus keto, and Whole30 might go away, and keto will probably go away as well. So it's kind of a short-term thinking to tie yourself to a trend like that, and then it's also, to your point earlier, short-term thinking to tie yourself to Amazon, for example, because even Jeff Bezos has admitted we're not above being disrupted ourselves. And 20 years ago, Amazon was the disruptor. They were the scrappy startup that, overturned Toys R Us, and thousands of stores have closed down. And, but now there's such a huge company and with the silos that exist, and they're not above being disrupted themselves. So it isn't wise to sort of tie yourself just to one platform, because that's the hot thing right now is Amazon as well.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was when we had this recent PO outage. It's very interesting, the panic of. And I've lived through this, where if, Amazon, not that they don't issue POs, but if the POs are smaller than they should be, it's like, okay, well, what's up with Amazon? It's like, well, hold on. How's our consumer demand, right? It's like we should be thinking, it's like, okay, we are building so much consumer demand and we're doing it in the right and effective ways. And consumers are going to go find this product, and Amazon might be where they go. But instead, we're thinking of Amazon first, and that is certainly, very, very risky. And for many brands, it is for, lack of a better option. And if it doesn't, make sense for you to have your own, D2C site, or you're just not there yet, then, it's, you're kind of forced into a corner. But, I think that there will be some reckonings, within the Amazon world, right? Whether it's, advertising and those costs, if everyone stops bidding up, then, we can all just save a lot of money. Or, the just infinite number of, of options, or all of these different platforms. It kind of reflects, for me, just everything has grown so much digitally. It's like, where do we actually go from here besides this single behemoth that we all know is not that efficient, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's a massive challenge. And I think, Amazon changes every year for brands. So this conversation will be radically different. If we had it again in 12 months from now, we'd be laughing about some of the stuff, we're talking about today. Right. And so you just have to stay on your feet. You have to, be your own consumer. And, there's a cottage industry right now of Amazon experts, and in reality, don't let anyone, overpromise, amazing results and that they, hold this single, trick to Amazon, because that's simply not the case.
There's a lot of sage wisdom that you've dropped on our audience today. Thank you so much, Leon, for coming on and sharing your experience over the last few years in e-commerce.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the time.
I might take you up on the coming back in a year's time to laugh at what we said today.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Kira. Take care.